Well, it tastes like the powder on the inside of a balloon. This might be the first bottle I ever actually just pour out.
I mean, keep it. We can let other people try it, but like...
Thank you for joining us this week, and welcome to
Bourbon!
How you doing, everybody?
Hello!
How you doing, buddy?
Hey, I'm rocking and rolling. How about you, good sir?
I'm doing pretty good. Mostly, I'm excited.
Yeah.
Because, well, a couple of reasons. I'm excited for tonight because we have a very fun thing to talk about.
Oh, yeah.
And for tomorrow because we have a very exciting thing happening.
Yes, we do. Tomorrow, the show launches. Behind the scenes content. Y'all didn't know the show hasn't launched and we're recording. Yeah, man, I am so excited.
So on that note, we have to say a big hearty welcome to
Bottle Bond! Welcome to the Bottle Bond. Welcome to the Bottle Bond. Boom, 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 boom.
Original content, everyone.
Yeah, that is what it sounds like when I try to make music. This is why I am not a musician.
It's like we don't need to help him. He's fine. He's good on his own.
So this is a really awesome episode. I'm really excited about this. This is the obligatory, the required almost, the expected bottled in bond episode of our whiskey show. Yeah. Every show that comes out about whiskey doesn't mean if it's a matter if it's long form, short form, whatever. They talk about what bottled in bond is, and we're going to do that today as well.
It's honestly, though, it's part of what got me hooked on the idea of including like an educational segment in what we were talking about. Because for me, like, you know, way back at the beginning, which was many moons ago at this point.
Many moons.
We talked about like why, like all the things about bourbon that were way more interesting and sort of in depth than I realized. So how critical it is to the founding of the country in a lot of ways. And how much it's impacted everything about what's made the country what it is, not just the diehard of sort of obligatory relationship with alcohol, but all of the things that come from that as well, right?
Yeah.
And so like it's part of what hooked me, which is why I was like, all right, cool. Like this is, this is the thing that's got me digging in and learning and researching and doing the homework.
Yeah. And it's a great point. Like part of my fascination, like I've talked about in the past, is like I love the history. I love where it comes from. Yeah. And like American whiskey has this beautiful history. And then like when you start looking at some of the world whiskeys as well, oh man, it's really, really, really incredible. Yeah. I mean, alcohol can be tied to the rise of civilization and a whole bunch of other stuff. Right. But that's not this episode.
No, it's not. But it is related to. This one episode will cover many things around what has shaped, among other things, a healthy populace.
Yep, that is correct. Okay, so let me set the stage for you. Okay, it's the 1800s. 19th century, that's right. 1800s is 19th century. And basically, there is no regulation whatsoever on food, on whiskey, on drinks, on anything.
For most of the 1800s.
Yeah. Like, we're talking like 1890s, this starts to become like a thing.
Yeah.
Like The Jungle, which we all learned about in school, The Jungle by
Upton Sinclair.
By Upton Sinclair came out in 1905. And so, like, we're like right in the 1890s that we start getting into what we're talking about today. Yep. So there's very little regulation with whiskey at this time, and it was the time period like where some of the problems that people were facing is they couldn't trust their whiskey. So there were two groups of people. There were distillers, people who were making whiskey, and then there were rectifiers. And rectifiers are kind of similar to like some of the rebottling groups today, or people who like buy and then like mess with it and then re-release it, that sort of a thing.
Well, a rectifier, I think there's a bunch of like technicality to it, right? But a rectifier is like, I think it has to do with something about like retreating but not modifying or something like that.
Yeah, that would make sense.
Like, cause like they're not. I don't think well, actually, I need to look into this. I guess it's homework.
Homework.
I can't decide. Thank you. I can't decide if I can't remember if rectifier includes like finishing or if it's just like rebottling and blending and mixing and like that kind of stuff.
So during this time period, they were doing things like adding things to it. So they would add like neutral spirits. They would add, juices and oils and flavoring and all kinds of stuff.
Anything that sounded good, because there was no reason not to.
Yeah, I mean, like, this is part of the time period, like whiskey making and whiskey drinking was such an important part of the country, but people were completely unable to like actually know what they were about to drink.
Yeah.
These rectifiers would literally they'd get some whiskey, they'd add stuff to it, and then they would sell it as fine old bourbon.
Yeah. Well, I mean, even today, people add coloring, so it roughly looks identical every time.
True.
Which at the end of the day, right, when it smells as strong as it smells and it looks the same color, that is a duck.
Yeah, but the coloring they're adding isn't like pure ethanol or some of these other things. And, and there were legitimate health concerns as well.
Yeah.
Like there were periods of time in the country when, like, especially like during Prohibition, when people were like, they would try to distill their own stuff. They wouldn't have anything to distill, so they distill boards.
Yeah.
And end up with, and that's part of where like the idea of blindness came from.
Yeah.
That's another episode though. Yeah. So 1800s, there's very little regulation.
Yep.
Well, then steps forward our namesake of the bottle, Colonel Edmund Haynes Taylor, to save the day. Now, Edmund Haynes Taylor, colonel in the Army, he founded the OFC distillery, stands for Old Fashioned Copper. Very successful distillery. It was great. He eventually sold it to George T. Stagg of Shenley's distillery. Not Shenley's. That's a different thing. He sold OFC to George T. Stagg, and then Stagg's distillery eventually became Buffalo Trace. And so, like, you can still find OFC whiskey out there sometimes, but it's a Buffalo Trace product, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay.
So
yeah, it sounds familiar. I know I've seen it.
It's an easy bottle to find because it says OFC in like these giant block letters. Yep. So like there's no subtlety to it. Colonel Taylor sells his distillery to Stagg, and then he goes on like almost like this campaign, this quest, this crusade for regulation of whiskey. Mm-hmm.
I don't have to deal with it anymore, so we should do it right.
Exactly. I mean, there's a little bit, yeah. So he teams up with this guy, John Carlisle. John Carlisle was just like a Washington dude, and him and E.H. Taylor like spent some time just really, really advocating for regulation, and they were successful. In 1897, the Bottled and Bond Act passed, and it created a whole bunch of requirements. It meant that anything that was made had to have one distiller in one distillery and during one distillery season. So you couldn't like mix years, you couldn't like mix distillers, you couldn't do anything. One distiller, one distillery, one distillery season. 4 years of aging in a federally bonded warehouse, just like today. It had to be bottled at 100 proof, period. And then it, of course, was not allowed to have any additives, and the label also had to have where it was distilled and where it was bottled.
Right.
So there were all these things that were required to be on the bottle to be called Bottled and Bond. So it created all these restrictions for distillers, but then it also gave them a tax break. What it did is it created a delay for when they had to pay the taxes. Instead of paying the taxes at creation, they paid the taxes after it aged. And so
they don't have to pay taxes every year it's in the warehouse?
No, they paid the taxes on the whiskey after it aged.
Okay.
And so it allowed them to have like this delay. It allowed them to have those front ends as long as they could cover them on the back end, but they didn't have to pay the tax immediately like they did before.
Okay, nice.
So it did give back to the distillers in some way.
Nice. Very cool.
Yeah, I mean, we should try this though.
We should. In fact, so this, for everybody to see, this was actually the very generous loan from a friend.
Yep. We're going to call her out again. Caitlin!
Yep. Thank you very much.
Yep.
So let the label tell the truth. That's convenient.
But it makes sense with the Bottled and Bond Act.
Colonel E.H. Taylor Jr., first and only single barrel.
Yes.
Which, legal definition.
Yep.
Colonel E.H. Taylor, single barrel, first and only, again. Straight bourbon whiskey, straight Kentucky bourbon whiskey of topmost class with the signature. And then it says, the yellow label is an exclusive and conclusive use. All right, cool. Bottled in bond, which means 50% alcohol, 100 proof, 750 milliliters. Colonel Edmund Haynes Taylor Jr. demanded perfection. His uncompromising standards for the highest quality whiskeys are legendary. Accordingly, the barrel selected for this single barrel bourbon whiskey comes from the best location in the warehouse constructed by Taylor. Barrels aging in the heart of these warehouses are routinely evaluated to identify whiskeys with the richest and most complex flavors. These select barrels are allowed to age as long as necessary to reach their peak maturity. Each barrel is then bottled individually, one barrel at a time, for an uncompromised taste. This single barrel bourbon is a tribute to the legendary Colonel E.H. Taylor Jr., a name synonymous with topmost class whiskey.
I mean...
wait, there's more propaganda. Hold on a second.
Oh, sorry. Okay.
So, E.H. Taylor Jr. occupancy, first place, is not accidental. Its supremacy as pure beverage whiskey bottled in bond is fundamental. All right. It's a weirdly awkward sentence. Pure limestone water, rule of the regions. Selected grain, model equipment, skilled manufacture, perfect distillation, splendid cooperage.
Cooperage.
Cooperage. Ah, there you go. The barrels, yeah.
Yep.
Splendid Cooperage. Cooperage. That's a weird name. Splendid Cooperage. Natural maturation. Ideal glassing. Comprehensive sanitation. So that's a really funny one because all of them are one line except that one. I'm pretty sure is meant to say comprehensive sanitation is one sentence, but it's wrapped. So you're like comprehensive. Oh, and sanitation, so sanitation was like new to the process, right?
I mean, we're talking about the 1800s. Sanitation was not a major part
All
of
employees must wash their hands when returning from the restroom, kind of thing.
Yeah. Well, I mean, but it's interesting because bacteria and things like that getting into the distillation process is the easiest way to ruin your beer, your mead, your cider, your whiskey, whatever.
Thousands of visitors will attest. E.H. Taylor Jr. So modern definition, that sounds like thousands of people will guarantee or will attest that it is in fact a distillery.
Or it's good, or that it's good whiskey.
I guess, right? But it's just a weird, this is the reason I couldn't read comics as a kid either. I'm like, this is all over the place. I don't know what is the flow?
It makes sense. But I mean, ultimately, so one of the things that I think is interesting to call out is this is not E.H. Taylor's whiskey. We're not drinking OFC. This is a bottle dedicated to the memory of E.H. Taylor by Buffalo Trace Distillery that he sold OFC to. Yep. So with the exception of drinking OFC, this is about as good as or as close as that's going to get. But this is a really, really well-respected bottle. Yeah. People fight to get a hold of these, especially in the single barrel. This is an exceptional bottle about one of the most important things that has happened to whiskey in America.
Well, and technically it's still handled like an allocated bottle, even though MSRP on it is still, $45 or $50 or something.
Price does not decide allocation.
No, well, it's a great example as to it though, right?
Yeah. But I mean, you'll spend $100, $150 on the secondhand market on a bottle.
I need a half ounce here real quick. Sorry.
Oh yeah. Can I have, and with this one, I might just take a half ounce.
Got to respect the friend that loaned this to us. So I'm gonna go hard on my bottle instead. Oh, that's your I'm gonna go hard on my bottle instead.
Sounds good. I'll go hard on your bottle too. That didn't work out. We're not gonna do that again.
So anyway, I'm gonna put this down here. But yeah, the fact is that this is still this is, in my experience, not trivial to find.
No, it's difficult.
Yeah, and I've definitely fully admit see the episode about buyer's remorse or bidder's remorse, I think I called it, right? Mm-hmm. But this was definitely one of those bottles where I'm like, this seems super popular. I should totally pay that. And I'm like, no, I should not have paid that. I mean, I'm happy I did because it's good, but it's definitely not the right price. Smooth. So that was a weird waft on that one. For a minute there, I definitely got like moldy sponge.
Oh,
I was like, oof. That might have been like a puff from these like chairs that we won at auction. So.
Or, I mean, I did clean the glasses after one of those other tastings we did earlier because it was bad.
True.
God, I could smell this all day. It smells good.
This is like, I would just say this is basically bourbon candy.
What was the ABV on this?
I have neither had enough to drink, nor have I been not paying attention. not paying attention.
You know the best part? When we talked about the ABV, because we talked about the requirements for bottled and bond.
That's why I gave you that look. I thought you were trying to trap me.
Oh, I thought
you were actually asking me.
My God. And I thought you were like, I don't remember either.
Oh, no.
Oh, no.
No, I gave you the salty look because I'm like, oh, come on. I was paying attention, and it's written on the board.
Yeah,
it's
listeners,
bottled in bond, so it has to be 100 proof.
That's correct.
It has to be bottled at 100 proof.
Oh man, yeah, listeners, we have our notes over here. Some people have their person standing with a cue card. We have a list of notes that I write before we do this.
I mean, I don't write them because I would probably say dysgraphic. So like, you'd look at that and be like, "Did you drink before the show, Adam?"
To be fair, yes, we do, but that's not the point.
Yeah. Have you considered becoming a doctor? You clearly write prescriptions.
All right. So, to continue the illustrious look at this particular section in history, this is normally where people stop, right? Okay, Colonel E.H. Taylor creates the Bottled and Bond Act, 1897. That gives us bottled and bond. These are the requirements to be bottled and bond.
May 3rd, March 3rd. March 3rd? I used to remember. I actually looked at it. I think it's March 3rd.
I think I want to say, yeah. I think March 3rd, 1897, if I remember right.
Yep.
Now, this created, there were a couple of years, there was some time where there were people who were fighting against the Bottled and Bond Act. This wasn't like E.H. Taylor was like, yeah, let's do this. And everyone was like, that's a great idea.
Right.
Absolutely not. The Rectifiers, this was horrible for them. This all, literally ruined their business.
Yeah.
In the Bottled and Bond Act, what it did is it described, it had all these requirements for something to be considered straight whiskey, to become considered whiskey. And the Rectifiers could meet those. Right. I mean, if nothing else, the no additives part was a huge problem because they would do that.
That was literally their business model.
Exactly.
I found this on the street. How's it taste in whiskey?
Yeah.
Right?
So yeah. So from there, all these people fought against the Bottled and Bond Act, and then they fought against it after it passed and such. Probably the most famous is Isaac Wolfe Bernheim of the Bernheim brothers. Pleasure Ridge Park Distillery.
Okay.
He invented I.W. Harper, which is something our listeners may actually know. He's the guy who made I.W. Harper. It was named after him, except instead of Bernstein, it was Harper. And Bernheim, it was Harper.
Well, Bernheim it was acquired, right? It's a Heaven Hill property now, I think.
Yep, Heaven Hill owns it. Yep. Well, and then the Pleasure Ridge Park Distillery was sold to Shenley in 1937.
Okay.
Yeah. So Isaac Wolfe Bernheim. So he argued that, in Congress, in front of the people of the day, he got up there and he argued that the Bottled and Bond Act gave distillers a distinct advantage, and that it hurt rectifiers because of that. And more importantly, he argued that it threatened the art of blending. Because that's the other thing that they could do. It wasn't just, I'm going to add, all of this hemlock and it'll make it taste better. It was also hey, I'm going to mix some of your whiskey, mix some of your whiskey, mix some of your whiskey, and then put it out as fine old bourbon.
Right.
Now, I mean, we still have that. We have blended whiskey and we have, those kinds of things. Right. But that's part of the reason that Taft, as we get to later, some of the more label conscious things came into play.
Okay.
So yeah, he was a huge like opponent of the Bottled in Bond Act, which is interesting because we can try some I.W. Harper.
It definitely looks like a bottle that belongs in like your grandma's like medicine cabinet or your grandma's like makeup cabinet or something.
Oh yeah, it absolutely has that perfumed bottle look to it.
Yeah.
Like what's the phrase that all show and no go?
We'll see. We can't talk trash until after the fact.
Yeah,
right?
I shouldn't get ahead of myself. Maybe it's gonna be delicious.
Yeah. If he had his way, it would be delicious. But so like I could see the argument that it would ruin an entire part of the economy, but at the same time, you either kill off the producer or you kill the consumer.
Yeah.
Right. There's not like at that point.
I mean, it's really an excellent example of the age-old argument about regulation, right? Like, this shouldn't be regulated. This is going to stifle creativity. This is going to stifle, freedoms.
Right.
But on the other side, then you have regulation being like, it's going to stifle needless death.
Right.
It's going to create a common consensus of what is like base level for this.
Right.
But on the other side, like I said, it does in some instances, stifle some creativity.
Right.
Just to take that perfectly like neutral position there.
Yeah.
Personally, I'm much more for regulation, but that's just a personal preference.
And oddly, I would say I'm probably the bleeding heart liberal, like among everybody I know. But I'm still in the camp of like regulation within reason.
Yeah, right? Absolutely. Like nobody needs over-regulation. Yeah. But I think regulation saves lives. One of my favorite stories. So OSHA is an organization that is responsible for the safety on work sites, right? And just like safety at work basically is their thing. And I heard someone making fun. Or I heard a story of someone making fun of some of the regulations of like, you cannot force people to sleep this close to a blah, blah, blah. You cannot force this on a person, and they're making fun of it. Like, who would ever do that? And then Boss Man cuts in. He's like, no. You need to understand, those are written in blood.
Yeah.
Those are in there because people did that. They tried to do that to make an extra buck.
Well, I mean, and the mess up part is, right, like, you go back to the origin of like, do not iron clothes on body. Mm-hmm. That warning is present. So a different way of saying it. A company would not spend the money to print that on the label if it was not part of a settlement agreement from a lawsuit. Mm-hmm. Right. Like, and even simplified. Right.
Is that on the label?
There are literally things that say like, do not.
I have definitely ironed clothes while wearing them, but that is not the point of what we're talking about today.
No, but like all of those labels where you're like, this is ridiculous. Mm-hmm. It's because somebody brought forth the Darwin principle, or
there was a lawsuit.
Somebody tried it for a lawsuit, and they were like, hey, I can get a buck out of this, right? Either way, it sucks, right? But like, all of that stuff has come about. I mean, the company's never going to spend the money on warning you unless it's required by law. Right.
It's like a whole bunch of those late 90s comedians, hemorrhoid cream that says for external use only, and wah, ha, 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 and that sort of stuff. But I mean, there's a lot of that that's got a much darker underside.
Maybe I'm just going to go ahead and steer us back towards rectifiers, perhaps, were well-meaning, but without something guiding them in the right direction.
Yeah.
Probably, would take a lot of liberties that they shouldn't have.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of the early instances of arguing regulation in the country.
Yep.
But you know what I really want? I want to taste it.
Same. I'm going to read this before I pop it. I'm going to try to. There's actually a weird wrap on the top, makes it hard. But since 1872, which tells you 25 years before the Bottled in Bond Act. Mm-hmm. That's,
like I said, he invented I.W. Harper.
Yeah, that's a lot of collateral damage. I.W. Harper, Kentucky straight bourbon whiskey. Okay. Literally just don't drink when pregnant and all that. There's no other information on the bottle. Except it up here.
That is an important notice, though, listeners. Please don't drink while pregnant.
Yeah. Anywhere, anytime, it's always a pleasure.
Okay.
That's it. That's all it's got.
I'm excited. This is going to be amazing. I'm calling it now. This is going to be a delicious bottle, and we're going to love it. Maybe.
Oh, I'm sorry. I should tell you the other part, right? It does say aged 15 years.
Oh, okay.
And it is 80 awkward proof. I think it's 86 proof.
Okay, so 43 ABV.
Yeah, because it's printed in gold, text on gold label. So
I'm excited to try it. I hope it's good. Do you know where you got this bottle?
I think just a local store. I don't actually remember. It does not stand out. It's not. I don't believe it's something I did like auction for or anything.
Okay.
Excuse me while I use my teeth.
I didn't bring my knife today.
That's fine. I have a bunch. I just left them in the other.
Yeah, and these chairs are comfy.
All right. Well. All right. I'm just gonna leave that awkwardness on there.
I love it.
And trash on the floor.
I think it's wonderful. I mean, honestly, like, you know, at this point, we're 4 bottles in. Do it.
Ready?
Not bad. Not the best pop, but not bad.
Man, this is sloppy.
Yeah, I'm interested. Like, we're both kind of going into this like, all right, let's see how we do.
All right.
But also, we had some pretty bad pours earlier.
Yeah, this is true. This is a very odd topper that's like very heavy, but I'm pretty sure paying tribute to the namesake, it feels as though they put lead inside the cap and then wrapped it in plastic. Because it's very heavy, but it also feels very cheap.
I'm really amused by the idea that the way they pay homage to the namesake is to include lead. Just be like, here's something unhealthy for you.
Peanut butter.
Yeah. Right away.
But Reese's peanut butter, not like actual peanut butter.
Yeah, no, this isn't the good stuff. This isn't Peter Pan. This isn't Jif. Ooh, and it's a little astringent with the peanut butter, too. Dandelion stems.
Old grass piles.
Yeah.
All right, I have not had enough to drink that I should be sick to my stomach. But I.W. Harper, you might have made me overcome that. Well, we made a lot of jokes early on, but I'm going to stick to one of them. It does taste like blindness. I realize why.
Yeah.
The gentleman who created this blend would not have wanted rules reigning in his creativity. Let's just call this painting outside the lines.
I don't know what I think of this. It's not my favorite.
Well, I feel like I need to clean my palate with a little bit of that Manhattan Project.
That was so bad. It was so bad.
Oh. It tastes like the powder on the inside of a balloon.
Yeah.
Like you ever blow up a balloon and it's got that
talcum powder kind of stuff?
Yeah, that's what it tastes like.
Yeah, I'm a little disappointed in that. All right, maybe it has something to do with the fact that I know I know the history about its namesake. Yeah, it's a good call. Yeah, let's swap out glasses.
For the rest of the evening, that glass is toxic.
Oh
boy, I'm just gonna put that over there.
Okay, so previously we did a tasting where I was really confused by a bottle because it did not feel amateurish. It felt like the choices that were made in the distillation were intentional. I just didn't understand them, right? This is the opposite. This feels like amateur whiskey.
Yeah.
And that's really weird because it's named after like it's namesaked to a whiskey from like the 1800s.
Yeah.
And so like,
this definitely tastes like take your kids to work day.
Yeah.
Right? Like, it's bad. This is okay. So somebody made this analogy for something else. I don't remember what the context was, but it was that like this tastes like a presentation where your child was allowed to pick what they wanted for dinner, and they're like, I would like ice cream, pizza, gummy bears, Pop Rocks.
Yeah.
Right, and you're like, what? Like in order, right? And they're like, no, roll the pizza and put all the stuff inside, and you're like, hey, you're like, that's. I will let you have that experiment.
I'm glad that's not a thing anymore because of the Bottled and Bond Act and whiskey.
Thank you, I.W. Harper, for being even worse at politics than you are at distilling.
That's true. You know, man, I really was hoping that would actually be a decent pour, but I don't.
This might be the first bottle I ever actually just pour out.
I mean, keep it. We can let other people try it, but like...
Look, I've never been good at like pranking people, and I'm not going to start with this.
I've got a couple bottles on my shelf that are just bad. If you're going to get rid of it, I will take it and add them to my just bad collection.
Oh my God.
Yeah, I need to let you taste my...
Like, the bottle needs to go into the break room. Like, we're going to do that Smash Room someday, and this is going to be way up on the list.
Oh, yeah. I need to let you try my Glenlivet French Oak. It's terrible. Just terrible. Okay, so earlier we were talking about Upton Sinclair and his book, The Jungle. We all learned in school that he wrote the book The Jungle about meat processing plants, and that the president at the time was eating his breakfast, and he read about some of the stuff in the book, and he couldn't finish his breakfast. And then in school, they like to talk about how The Jungle by Upton Sinclair then led to the Food and Drug Administration and to food regulation, which is true. In 1906, the Pure Food and Drug Act passed, and that was a lot in regards to Upton Sinclair's book. But it also reignited the battle between rectifiers and distillers because it labeled whiskey, or labeled the stuff that rectifiers were doing not as real whiskey, basically. It only the other stuff. So things get back to them going back and forth. We're arguing again. Big drama in the whiskey world. Lots of politics. And then December 26th, 1909, President William Howard Taft comes out with the Taft Decision. Now, the Taft Decision is the first time that consumers actually really get to know what's in their whiskey. Its whole idea, its whole like guiding principle was truth in labeling, which goes back to the stuff we've got right here. So, like, just as an example, like one of the things in the Taft decision was you couldn't call a neutral spirit whiskey. You can't make alcohol from molasses and call it whiskey, right? And it's like that's a thing that a lot of people were doing. It was legal, and so people would do that.
Yeah. It wasn't not illegal or whatever, right?
Exactly. And
it was not legal.
This decision is what gives us the basis of a lot of the things we've been talking about. Yeah. Single barrel has meaning because of the Taft decision. A single malt, bourbon, bottled in straight bourbon. Each of those have meaning because of the Taft decision. And it goes into a whole bunch of stuff of like what it means to be a blend and what it means to be straight whiskey. And it goes into all those sorts of things. It is one of the most important like federal government decisions that was ever made in regards to whiskey.
Okay.
In fact, it is so important that in 2009, William Howard Taft, the President of the United States, was inducted into the Bourbon Hall of Fame because he came out with the Taft decision.
Yeah.
Like, it was that level of importance.
Yeah. It's already such a crowded field.
Yeah.
I could not imagine if there were literally no rules.
Yeah. I mean, even just like look at politics today. Imagine if a candidate had to qualify every statement they say. We're coming up on the election here in the United States. And
Don't get me started on fact checking.
Yeah, well,
this entire show is based on it.
Yeah, exactly. Well, like, so if you had candidates who were required at the end of every statement to reference where it came from.
Yep.
Or to reference its thing, right? Like you're going to have vastly different speeches given.
Yep.
Right? This is similar. Like you had people distilling molasses, adding flavoring and color to it, and calling it fine old bourbon.
Right.
The consumer literally had no control, and the Taft decision gave them that, let them know what they were consuming, and it was pretty fantastic. Speaking of the Taft decision, we're going to drink some more E.H. Taylor.
This one, I really need to clean my palate after that.
Yeah.
And I figured we'd pop out my bottle so I didn't feel so bad going hard on this.
Yeah.
This is not a single barrel. I apologize. I'm not that cool.
What is it?
But this is small batch.
Small batch what?
Well, this is still small batch E.H. Taylor, bottled and bond.
Yes.
Which means small batch, nothing. Everything else matters. So it matches all that criteria, right? It's the modern version of it.
Yes.
But it's otherwise, it all matters.
Yes.
And one of my pet peeves about E.H. Taylor is like, there's so much content on the labeling and everything else. It took me a little while to start to recognize, like, oh, the like dark orange isn't quite the same as the dark red labeling, even though it looks nearly identical.
Yeah, their branding really goes hard into kind of like that legalese, vintage, old America kind of feel, which is totally great. I mean, I can't argue with it. It's a great thing. But yeah, telling the difference between small batch and single barrel and bottled and bond, and it's a whole thing.
But I do appreciate that they make a good product.
Yeah.
I do appreciate that.
I'm a fan of E.H. Taylor. I don't know that I'm secondhand market a fan of it.
Let's have an enjoyable half ounce of a wonderful beverage.
Now that is a wonderful half ounce.
But like, whoopsie.
That might be.
That's about a half ounce.
I mean, yeah, that's a half ounce.
So, where do you have my cap? Do you have the cap?
Oh, I do. Yeah.
Hey. So like early on, I had sort of had I had the privilege of being able to like go out and ransack the secondary market a little bit. I'm not talking like thousands of bottles or anything, and I didn't go anything super ham. But this was one of the ones where I was like, this looks super cool. I would like some, and it's not so. Like I think on average, the bottle price I paid was still in the order of like $100-ish. It's not $200, $300, $500.
Yeah, still didn't get it for MSRP, but not too bad.
Nope. I honestly, even with the relationships I've made locally, and by relationships I mean paying large parts of someone's commission for a month. Even with those local contacts, I still haven't actually had somebody call me about a bottle of E.H. Taylor.
I don't think I've ever seen it in the wild for MSRP. I've seen it in the wild for secondhand prices, but not MSRP.
One of my local stores does put it out. A couple of them actually just put it on the shelf. They put a little thing that says limit one.
Yeah. A couple of the big box stores, and then Oak Liquor Cabinet I think will do that. But Oak Liquor Cabinet also will like hide it. Like they do a thing where when they get an allocated bottles, they hide them in the store. And they're just like,
that's cool.
Yeah, they're just like randomly behind like 4 bottles of Kettle One.
Yeah.
So you're just like walking by and you suddenly notice, oh my God, that's a bottle of E.H. Taylor.
Nice.
Yeah, Raj is really great stuff.
But does he MSRP it or does he like?
Yeah, he's good.
Nice. Yeah, there's several of the like smaller places that are. I had a guy try to feed me a line the other day about how like the local small business groups make them jack their prices up, and I discovered after the fact that like it's actually illegal by the state laws around that stuff, and so like I was trying to be supportive of smaller businesses, but I'm pretty sure I got it. Whatever, he took me for like $20 extra on a bottle of something local to Texas.
Yeah,
or it wasn't even local to Texas. It was some random whatever small thing.
Yeah, and it's difficult to drink E.H. Taylor or any of the allocateds and not talk about the allocated system. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, it's a thing. Yeah. People charge crazy amounts.
Yeah. I like this though, man. This is I can taste. There's like it doesn't have quite the smoothness of that single barrel, but it's still just such a damn drinkable bourbon.
Yeah, there's a reason people like Buffalo Trace.
Yeah.
It is approachable. It is drinkable. It is tasty, and it is respected in the zeitgeist. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, you're not in a position where ordering it is immediately gonna like have an implication, right? Like if you order Evan Williams and you're like, God, I love this bourbon, Evan Williams, people are gonna look at you and be like, really?
Yeah.
That's your go-to, Evan Williams? I mean, don't get me wrong, Evan Williams is great, but it doesn't even really stand up against Woodford Reserve,
right?
Let alone like E.H. Taylor.
I will say I'm definitely not a trace chaser. Like I'm not. It's fine. Like if it's in front of me, I will usually buy.
It is good juice. It is not the only juice.
Yeah, I would willingly buy 80% of their inventory at MSRP.
Yeah, I agree with that.
I would say that there's very little I've had from their catalog that I would say is I would willingly pay more than MSRP.
Yeah. I don't. I mean, I just got my first bottle of Weller 12. I've been bottle chasing it for like 3 years now.
It's almost like you have some influence over the local market. No, I'm kidding.
Purely through friendship.
Yeah. No, that was great though, right?
Yeah, it was the first time I've been able to find that bottle at MSRP. I've seen it on the shelf for $200.
Yeah,
but I'm not doing that.
Oh, same said person.
Yeah,
to try to convince me about their prices being set, he clocked out his bottle of Weller 12. Mm-hmm. It was $298 was what he's like. Oh, that's like they want me to sell for $350. I was like,
do you know what I spent on my bottle?
It was like $46, right?
$43.
Nice.
Yes, that is MSRP.
Yeah,
and we'll go into allocated stuff another time. We'll really get deep into it. Yeah. For now, though, this is delicious.
This is splendid.
Yes, it is. And
Thank you, E.H. Taylor.
Thank you, E.H. Taylor, for creating the system as we have it now. Food and Drug Administration, eventually, the whole thing. Fuck you, Isaac Wolfe Bernheim. Well, no, you're fine. You're great. History needs people who are wrong, too.
Yeah. Well, yeah, clearly, like most of these things, right? It wouldn't even be a thing that has a conversation because people are like, yeah, of course, right? But yeah, I mean, it's the worst thing that Bernheim did was cost me whatever that bottle was because oh my god,
it was. Oh, I wanted to like it more too.
I'm pretty sure, actually, I think I do remember where they came from. I think that was one of the days where my wife went out to our local place and talked to somebody and just grabbed a bunch of like the fun random stuff she had not seen.
It is a very pretty bottle that looks like perfume.
Yeah, absolutely. Right. And that's, I mean, like, I think it was one of those, like, it was probably one of a very few set or whatever. She just looked for things that were not in stock.
Nice. So, yeah. All right. Yeah, to you, sir.
To you, sir.
To the bond.
To the bond. And for goodness sake, to E.H. Taylor.
To E.H. Taylor.
Thank you for letting me go blind on my own and not at the behest of any other person.